welcome to the Aces Up Your Sleeve podcast. I'm your host, Cade.
Your host, Sabrina.
And if you've never joined us before, we are two autistic, multiply neurodivergent, queer, asexuality spectrum, kinky, fat, disabled-ish therapists. I don't know how many descriptors we want to throw out there, but
We've got a
we
lot in common.
bring... We do, yeah. And we bring a perspective that we don't often hear on podcasts, so that's why we started one. And yeah, we're here today to talk about meltdowns, specifically autistic meltdowns. We usually give this disclaimer. So as a disclaimer, this is not therapy or therapeutic advice. It's just what we might do if we were in your position, our thoughts on the situation. In this one, I assume we're also sharing like factual information.
That's the hope and the dream. I'm sure I'll also at some point talk about like autistic meltdown versus like borderline meltdown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, so buckle in. Content note, obviously we're talking meltdowns. We are usually pretty direct in how we talk about things, so I don't think we're going to use like euphemisms or metaphors for stuff. We're pretty direct. So if you don't want to hear it, that's totally okay, and you can skip this one. You'll also want to skip our bonus content over on the Patreon because it'll be about those internalized meltdowns that happen primarily in your mind and your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. And you can always join back like when you feel ready, or wait until our next episode because we release every single week.
Yeah. And before we jump into today's stuff, we wanted to make sure that everybody knows we are participating in the podcast-thon later in March.
Woo!
So it is the world's largest charity supporting podcast event, and we're going to dedicate an episode of Aces Up Your Sleeve to support a charity and a cause that really matters to us. So if you stick around, you're going to hear it on March 17th, and you'll get to find out which podcast or which charity we chose for our podcast. It doesn't require anything of listeners, but if you do feel called to donate to an organization, especially the one that we pick, that would be really great, and it would help a lot of folks. And that episode will also wrap up our season 1. So that's exciting too. Yeah.
Super exciting. We're planning to kind of dive back into season 2 not too soon after, but we'll keep you posted on all of the news about that as we get there.
Yeah, and we're hoping to continue to bring you helpful info, entertainment, and relatable stories.
Woo! Okay, before we get to the questions, I want to ask, like, what was your, like, first meltdown memory experience, like, or either just, like, how you used to melt down as a kid, like, what that was like for you, especially because you were also diagnosed pretty late in life.
Yeah, I'll be honest, when I read about autistic meltdowns, and obviously in the field, like, I've worked with autistic clients who've had meltdowns, I was kind of like, I don't know that I've ever had a meltdown. So I can't remember any big moments of distress, dysregulation. I checked with my mom and was like, "Hey, I'm I'm trying to figure out if I'm autistic. Did I ever freak out as a kid? Like, what did that look like? Temper tantrum, some people call it. Did you see any of that?" And she's like, "No, you were the most laid back, mild mannered, like kind of stoic child. We didn't really see any of that." So I don't know that I had meltdowns in the way that most would consider it, but definitely a shutdown kid, still a shutdown type of person. The internalized meltdown thing resonates with me, which we'll talk about more on the bonus content, but like that, the looping thoughts and the real negative criticism, that type of stuff. I think the closest thing that I would have was like psychosomatic symptoms, like going to kindergarten and being so overwhelmed on the first day that I like puke in the planters out front. Yeah. So, yeah, meltdowns, not so sure. How about you?
So when I was growing up, everything, like every quote unquote negative emotion that I had was blamed on my adoption.
Oh gosh.
Like being an adopted kid. But I used to have, we called them tornadoes.
Oh,
and it
yeah,
would
you've
be
mentioned
knock
this.
down, drag out, like on the ground, kicking, screaming, like can't get up, can't breathe for crying, like that kind of thing. And so, yeah, like as I got older, the first time I heard about meltdowns, I was like, oh, I don't have meltdowns. And I was like, oh, I did used to have tornadoes. And like, then as I think, especially because I was diagnosed with borderline first, I attributed a lot of my like teenage year stuff to like borderline meltdown more so than
Oh.
autistic meltdown. And I have worked really hard on like sitting with myself and thinking about like what I've noticed the difference feel like. But yeah, it was definitely like way back then, you know, some of it was probably attachment trauma. Like I would definitely have those like the babysitter came, my mother was leaving meltdown, like, or, attachment trauma meltdown,
Yeah.
somewhat. But I also would have them like in noisy restaurants and like in, like just too hungry, overstimulated, understimulated, like all those types of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are some pretty classic triggers for autistic meltdowns.
Yeah.
When you I don't know if you wanna go into it too much, but I know we might have some listeners who are trying to parse out for themselves, like, is this borderline related? Is this anxiety? Is this an autistic meltdown? Are the key things you would notice that were different is that the autistic ones are more sensory related, or are there some other key differences?
There was definitely like some sensory stuff. I think there's an aspect of like I need everything to stop that happens kind of in both, but with the borderline one, there's also a like fuck everyone, which is really a
Mhm.
way of saying like I feel worthless and unloved and uncared for, and I have to export that onto other people suck, or I have to think about the ways that I suck, because that's usually like for me the come down, right? So like the peak will be fuck everyone, everyone sucks. I'm so angry, and then like as that wears down, it'll be I suck, nobody loves me, I'm alone, like those types of feelings. And so like yeah, it's I don't have that as much with
Mm.
my personal autistic meltdowns. I know that that can be some of the like thought process for some folks, because like I think regardless of where they come from, if you do and say things during your meltdown that like hurt other people that you care about and love, or aren't in line with your values, like it gets hard not to shame yourself, and so it's really important to work on that. But like for me, there's like kind of a switch that happens on the like downflow of like everyone else sucks, I suck. That usually
Yeah.
to me signifies, oh, this was borderline related.
That makes sense because usually when I'm hearing folks talk about, more of the autistic meltdown side of things, it's there sometimes is that aspect of everyone get away from me, but
Hmm.
there's not that underlying stuff with that. It's just, I just need silence or I need no one to witness this or whatever it is.
I need the exact sensory experience that I need, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes total sense.
yeah. Okay, I was interested in
Yeah.
that before we got too deep into the questions, because I'm sure that that will play a role in how we view this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely don't feel as qualified to talk outside of, like, from a mental health professional perspective who also happens to be autistic, the actual having them, yeah, that's a little outside of what I know.
Yeah.
Um, so our first question, "Hello, I wanted to write in to ask if it's common for autistic adults to have meltdowns, or is it something we're supposed to grow out of as we age? I feel a
Mm,
lot of embarrassment over still having them, and I'm afraid to talk to anyone about them. I tried one time with a therapist, but they basically wanted to send me to anger management class." Oh, yeah.
yikes.
That's
Yeah, I
actually a
mean,
really common, like, people therapists, doctors hearing about these moments and being like, "Whoa, you need anger management, you need, like, some meds that are gonna kinda tranquilize you here, like, we cannot be having you do that," or what you're describing, if you let that go on, that could be abusive to your partner, to your family, to whoever, and they miss that autistic piece and some of
mhm.
the nuances with that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, right, like I've never heard of an autistic trait like being supported differently based in age versus in environmental
Oh,
supports.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like we're not growing out of anything.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I think the reason that it might become less frequent that folks have meltdowns or possibly even less intense, um, because as we grow up, we get more autonomy.
Mhm.
And with that autonomy, we might end up making choices that happen to support us better. So that ends up being, oh, my house doesn't have to have the overhead lights on ever. I can live by lamps. I can live by fairy lights and things like that. And so then I'm not overstimulated all the time by overheads. Whereas it might be your parents require the overhead light in the living room or the kitchen or whatever. You can have whatever foods you want and you don't have to feel shamed or judged by, well, why aren't you eating your broccoli at the dinner table? You
Yeah.
can make choices about, like, do you eat with other people or do you choose to eat alone? Either so that you don't have to hear other people chewing and misophonia, or because you
Mhm.
don't want to be witnessed while you eat. Like, there's just a lot more choice that you have. And so I think most people tend to start, even without like being identified autistic, start to like edge towards like, I'm just gonna kind of take care of my needs more. And that can reduce meltdowns. But I do think that, like, yeah, anyone in a sensory situation that is completely overwhelming or underwhelming could have a meltdown at any age.
Absolutely. And you're right that the more control and more resources we have, the easier it becomes to like navigate around things that used to trigger us.
Hmm.
And that still would if we had to put ourselves through it. There's also you don't have to you don't have to appease an entire family unit as you
Hmm.
age. If you're able to get out of the home, if you don't need to depend on them in certain ways, if somebody makes you a really disgusting meal, you don't have to sit there and like stomach it. And if you make yourself a disgusting meal, you can maybe order some takeout or fix something else without hurting anybody's feelings and having to manage all the dynamics. It
Hmm.
just could look so much different.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't think no, we're not supposed to grow out of it. It just might change in what's triggering for you, how you navigate it, how you accommodate yourself in your life, so that maybe you're not running into it as much.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think that it's another thing, like, um, it's part of why we start seeing, I almost think of it like a bell curve, probably, is that like we see a lot of meltdowns in childhood, and then we see less but not none in adulthood when there's the most autonomy, for most people. And then we see more again in older adulthood as autonomy starts to slip again. Um,
Yeah,
but I do think, I say all that to say that, like, I think that that's probably why it feels like adults are not having meltdowns. I think adults are absolutely having meltdowns. I also think that, again, because there's autonomy, it's like, am I melting down in my car versus
yeah,
like in the grocery store with my mom? Am I melting down? Like, I have more autonomy to melt down where I want to in private,
yeah,
um, versus like just in public where it's really visual. Oh, like we see kids melt down all the time.
yeah. I also think that they're perceived differently.
Yes.
So if you're a teen at school and a teacher pisses you off and your day has sucked and you go into full meltdown mode and you're like screaming and who knows what you might do in those moments, that's going to be seen differently than if you're a boss at a high stress corporation and you scream at your employees.
Hmm.
That feels different, looks different. People are going to perceive it differently. They might excuse the boss of like, well, they're under a lot of stress and they've got all this, and we should have known better. And that teen, it's going to be like, you need to go to detention, or you're expelled, or you're going home for the day. How dare you
Hmm.
talk to people like that? And so I think we witness autistic adults having meltdowns sometimes, but we don't attribute it to that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I think it is probably very common. Um, I know most of the autistic adults that I know have had at least some meltdowns in the times that I've known them, over our lives. I have had meltdowns as an adult. Um, like, I also think that sometimes the more work that I have done on like recognizing when I'm getting towards a meltdown, like, I've been in therapy my whole life, but I've been in pretty specific therapy for BPD for shit a while now. Like I was gonna say we're like getting close to a decade. Because I was diagnosed in my early 20s. And so like I have a pretty good skill set at like, okay, I can recognize like if this doesn't end, I will be screaming, crying, throwing ass. Like I saw that meme the other day and I laughed so fucking
Love
hard.
it.
Like, but that's what's gonna happen. Like that, there's not really an option here. And so then I do everything in my power to like make the situation stop so that it doesn't happen. Again, I've got the autonomy to do that. So I think that can also be a thing. Is like adults sometimes have more access to skills or have been like working on this particular thing. I think it is really hard when you're telling therapists and they're sending you to fucking anger management. Like
Yeah.
that's unhelpful. But if you end up finding a pretty solid therapist who like can really understand and validate that like the reason you had the meltdown makes complete sense. The meltdown itself is not the thing that needs like you can't do anything once you hit that mindset,
Yeah.
right? Like I never try to say like, well, you know, when you're already in meltdown, can you just XYZ? No, absolutely not. If I could fucking XYZ, I wouldn't be in a meltdown. Like that's already skills breaking point. We're not there. And so instead it's about like, hey, have you noticed any patterns to your meltdowns? Have you noticed like, yeah, it tends to be every day around 3. Okay. Walk me through a regular day. Oh, you're not eating for 6 hours. And then you're having a meltdown. Yeah. Have a snack at like 1:30.
Yeah.
And like let's see if you keep having meltdowns every day at 3. You know what I mean? But you need a therapist who's actually going to like be engaged and interested in supporting you through it and not pushing you off to someone else to have anger management bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be worth looking into a therapist who is autistic themselves or a DBT therapist who has some training on how to adapt that for autistic folks or an autistic therapist who knows how to do DBT.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sabrina's not the only autistic adult that I have heard has been well served by a DBT that is tailored to autistic individuals and that really takes the sensory stuff into consideration more so than general DBT.
Yeah. And I also like I am biased. I'm a DBT therapist and DBT saved my life. In my personal experience and understanding, this is also just a person who actually understands the tenets of DBT. He's the very, very foundational. Like, if you had to pick one thing that DBT is based on, it's validation. And that's where you have to start is validating that like it made sense that you had a meltdown. We need to understand what it was, the environmental factors that went into that. One of the very first parts of DBT is the assumptions, and the last assumption is understanding the sources and causes of behavior works better than judging and blaming. So no, it's not just we need anger management. That's not going to help you figure out the source and the cause of what happened. It's going to tell you need to manage your anger, and that's more of a do something with the behavior, less so than do something with the environment that caused the behavior. And so a true actual DBT therapist understands that. There are tons of DBT therapists, unfortunately, who fucking leave that shit by the wayside, which I don't understand at all. But that's my little DBT soapbox, and I'm climbing down now.
And maybe in the show notes we can put a couple articles and or books written by autistic folks about DBT who get it, and it could be a jumping off point for some people.
Yeah, the like, oh, what do they call it? The like neurodivergent affirming DBT workbook, something like that.
Yeah.
The Sunny Jane Wise one is really good because it does focus a lot on like supporting your sensory needs.
Yeah, and my friend Rachel Krause and I think Amara Brooke also work on some like articles and research stuff. So hopefully we can get some resources in there. And yeah, I think if you're going through that, you shouldn't have to go through it alone. Like there are people out there who are well prepared to support you. And on that anger management note, too, something we didn't mention, but autistic meltdowns are not always tied to anger. So even if you're
Mm-hmm.
getting anger support, autistic meltdowns put you in fight or flight, usually one of the two. freeze and fawn are also there, but that's usually more shut down in different things. But
Mhm.
if you're in fight or flight, it may not be because of anger. It could be other emotions. It could be anxiety. It could be that sensory piece. It could be so many other reasons than just anger. So to try to say, oh, it's all anger management, it might unintentionally cause you to gaslight yourself and be like, I'm just an angry person, when that may not be true.
Yeah. Or that, like, and again, back to DBT, by the way, is dialectical behavior therapy for folks who don't know. I find that I tend to forget to specify that. But it, all emotions have a purpose. And if there is anger there, it doesn't need to be managed, it needs to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it might not be anger. And if it is, even if you are an angry person, quote unquote, the like anger is there to motivate you to create change in your life. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes that change is turning the fucking overhead light off. And sometimes it is crawling in bed with the cat and like not leaving for 2 hours. And sometimes it is telling somebody that they need to stop treating you poorly. Like
Yeah.
it's not just there. Anger is not like bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make people a bad person to experience anger. It's one of the most important emotions that we have. It's why it pops up with other emotions very often, because the other emotion goes, I'm fear and I'm afraid of things and I'm really scared and I don't know what to do. I'm frozen a little bit. And anger goes, hey, instead of just being afraid and frozen, here is also some motivation and some fire under your ass to create change and get the fuck away from whatever is scaring you.
Beautifully
That's the
said.
whole
Yeah.
point, you know? And so even if it is anger, there's nothing wrong with that. Even if there is like anger and other things, there's nothing wrong with that. And even if you are an angry person, it sounds like you're a person whose life has got some changes to be made.
Yeah. And a final thought on this one too. If you are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to do therapy. I don't know if I want to look into that. Don't want to do the workbook for myself. Like, not really interested there. But you still want some support, and you want to reduce that embarrassment or shame around talking about it. There are a lot of online autistic communities where autistic adults are talking about their meltdowns, and
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't post right away, just seeing others talking about it can help reduce it. Of course, you're going to see all types of comments. So some you might read and go, "Well, now I feel more embarrassed. Thanks a lot." But overall, those environments tend to be more supportive towards. We all have this baseline understanding that that is an autistic trait, and it's pretty common for a lot of autistic people to have autistic meltdowns. So
Yep.
to shame each other is not actually going to be helpful.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Well, our next one. I'm an adult with ADHD and autism, and I need major help, please. I can't stop freaking out by the end of my day, and I end up having to crush my head between my hands, stomp around, and sometimes throw stuff just to calm down enough to eat dinner and go to sleep. Work sucks, friends are overwhelming, and my roommate always wants me to do a chore or hang out. How the F do I avoid this? I feel like it's a vicious cycle. Are there any medications for it?
Oh,
That's so tough.
that
It
is
sounds like
tough.
your day is very overwhelming.
Yeah. I will start by saying, like, I'm glad that you have tools that seem to be working. Like, obviously, ideally, your environment does not require you to use them as much, but like, okay, squeezing your head, I can understand. Like, that seems like it would be a really helpful, like, pressure based sensory
Mhm.
experience. Tomping around is one of my favorites. And throwing shit. Like, I don't like big empty wall space, but like, I sometimes keep some, like, just in different rooms in my house so that I have a space to like throw stuffed animals and shit. Because my arms are where a lot of my anger lives. So it sounds like you do have good tools just to start
Yeah.
off by validating that.
Very sensory based ones too to get you regulated at that sensory level, which sounds like it brings the sensation down enough that you can eat some dinner and then try to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do know, I want to acknowledge that sometimes the throwing stuff, I know for a lot of folks, they get upset with themselves because they're throwing things that are quite valuable and hard to replace. So if
Mm,
that's the case, I usually work with clients around what can we have nearby? Like if it's as soon as you walk through the door, can we keep something right by the door? A throw pillow, stuffed animal, maybe even something that could get broken and you'd be okay with it.
Hmm.
That way you can use it right as you get home, and you're more prone to do that than like maybe grab your phone out of your pocket and throw this $900 cell phone or whatever it is.
Yeah, I've definitely shattered a phone that way. I also will advocate for Legos.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Legos make a wonderful sound when thrown. They're intended to be able to break apart and nothing bad happens. If you throw them in such a way that like they're easy to kind of sweep up into a bucket, now you have a new activity to do later. Um, or if someone else in your house enjoys doing Legos, here, make more Legos. I will throw them again. Awesome symbiosis. Um, but for folks who do like, sometimes I'll work with folks who are like, throwing a stuffed animal isn't enough. I need to see something break.
Yeah.
Legos.
That's a great idea. I know some people also will freeze like thin chunks of ice to go outside and just smash it against cement or
Hmm.
pavement or whatever.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
lots of different ways to keep engaging in the ways that are already working. And I think part of the reason that we're talking about this also is like to demystify and like destigmatize like what you're already doing isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with it. It
Yeah.
sounds like you're doing a great job. I'm not seeing any like I'm screaming at my roommate that they're a piece of shit. And I wish that they would die. You know, like these are, it sounds like quite effective tools, like I said.
Yeah, yeah, and we don't want to take those away. We want to broaden how you're able to access it. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not super clear if you wanted some suggestions on how to do that, if you're listing these things cuz they're helpful or if you're listing these things cuz they help but you want to change them. So just to be clear, you don't have to change those things. It
Right.
sounds like they're helping.
Yeah. I think the real honest truth to this is going to be the one that you don't want to hear. It's the one that no one wants to hear. Um, there are not medications for this. This is a boundary issue.
Yeah. Cuz there are meds that will soothe you and your nervous system and numb things. But it's almost like a kind of a band-aid. I hate to say it that
It'd be
way,
the
but
same as if like we as talk therapists were like, here, let's teach you how to dissociate away from this instead of actually addressing like the problem at hand.
yeah. Yeah, if you were like, "Oh, every time I go to open my doorknob, there's this piece of metal that, like, cuts me and I bleed," and we're like, "Oh, well, let's get you a pack of Band-Aids and you're good to go."
Right.
Like, let's maybe change the doorknob. What can we do about this doorknob issue?
Right. Exactly. Can we also like, even just to start with, let's cover up the doorknob with a piece of tape or
Yeah, or get you
other like
a thick
foam
glove.
or
Yeah.
something, right? And then from there, we can still recognize that the doorknob is a problem that needs addressing. Like it doesn't work to just do one thing with a complex issue like this.
Yeah. So, we don't have to go super deep into it, but right away, you say work was it work sucks?
Work
Yeah,
sucks,
work
friends are
sucks.
overwhelming, and my roommate wants me to do a chore or hang out.
With work, like, if we just start there, maybe figuring out what sucks the most about work, because it's easy to say the entire job sucks, and maybe that is true, but if we break it down into the pieces, it's easier to figure out what accommodations might be helpful to make it suck less until you can find different employment. I know some
Mhm.
people get accommodations and then are like, "Oh, I actually kinda like this job now that I don't have to"
Now that
whatever
it's
it
not
is.
hell on earth, yeah,
Yeah. So, I would say maybe breaking down that job and maybe enlisting one of those friends. Enlist somebody to help you do this, because when you're the one who feels overwhelmed, having to take those steps by yourself is also very overwhelming.
absolutely. Um, Friends are overwhelming. It's maybe time to talk to them about that.
Yeah.
Is it that they're too loud? Are they asking too much of you? Like, what part again is overwhelming? And then being really open and honest, like, y'all, I'm struggling a lot right now. I don't have a lot to offer. I
Mhm.
actually need this friendship to be more take on my end and give on your end for a little while while I get my shit together. Like,
Yeah.
it's a really hard thing to do, but it's really important that we don't just let our friends keep pissing us off, or being overwhelming or being like making us sad or scared. They don't want to be doing that to you. They want
No.
to know that that's how it feels. Um, they might be a little defensive when you talk to them about it, whatever, but like they they're your friends. They care about you. They don't want you feeling overwhelmed. And so like let them in on the secret. And if you can figure out how they could be less overwhelming or like what you're needing, um, and then communicate that.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully they would be open to some change, especially if you gave them some ideas on what that could be. If you have a
Mhm.
friend who every day is like, "Can we hang out today? Can we hang out today? How about tomorrow? What about this weekend?" And you're like, "I just need to not hang out with anyone until I get this work stuff figured out." The kindest thing you can do instead of constantly shooting them down for hanging out or ghosting them is to just upfront say, "I love hanging out with you, and I know I haven't in months now, years now, whatever the truth is. And I don't think I'm going to be able to because work is taking up so much energy and brain space. So if we could pause the invites and I'll let you know when I'm ready."
Yeah. And then also like um you know, hey, can I ask you to hang out next time? Like
Yeah.
I hear and know that you are available and want to hang out. I also want to hang out. It makes me feel bad every time I have to say no. Um and is it okay if I do the asking?
Yeah.
And I will let you know as soon as I am ready to spend time. Same thing with like messages and stuff. Like, hey, um, I have friends who will like turn their phones to do not disturb or whatever at certain times, but you could even just like, I need to not get texts after 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Like, I can try to mute stuff, but even just like, I'll be on my phone and I'll happen to see it. And that is overwhelming. So I'm asking, please don't text me after 9 p.m. or before
Yeah.
8 a.m. or, whatever your time period is.
Yeah. Or if you're like, I'm someone who needs conversation on a schedule, maybe scheduling a phone call and being like, "Hey, can we start scheduling a once weekly, once monthly, whatever feels doable to you, phone call instead of you just calling me every time you're ready to chat?"
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. And then the roommate piece always wants me to do
They
a
were
chore or hang
roommates.
out.
They were
Yeah.
roommates. Yeah.
Gosh, that always wants me to do a chore or hang out. That's tough
Yeah.
because, yes, when you live with a roommate, there are probably some chores that you are responsible for. And are they chores you're capable of doing right now? Like maybe looking at capacity with the roommate, having a real conversation around, again, work is so hard right now. I do not have much energy or brain space. I know I need to pitch in, or you want me to pitch in, or I said I would do this. Can we reevaluate what I can do for the next month or however long, you know?
Mm-hmm. I would also say like they always want me to do a chore. Like it might be chores you can do and not right this fucking second, man. Um, and so it might be something of like, hey, let's make a plan about like, hey, yeah, I absolutely know that like doing the dishes is my chore or doing taking out the trash is my chore. I can understand that you want it done on your schedule, but what I can offer you is it being done on my schedule or you doing it. That's what I can offer you. That's it. That's the whole thing. I cannot offer you it being done on your schedule. I also like I'm going to be coming home from work and not doing chores. So
Yeah.
prepare yourself for that. In whatever way you need to.
And then maybe it's also a conversation, if that's how you want to take it, around that means I'm only doing it on my days off, which are just 1 or 2 days a week. So if it's dishes and we fill up that sink every night, even if I'm good at that chore and don't mind doing it, maybe we do have to swap some chores around to something that can be done only once weekly or twice weekly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like where can we reduce? In my house, my partner does all of our dishes, but also is multiply neurodivergent and like disabled and all this shit. We use like paper plates and bowls and plastic cutlery most of the time. That way they're mostly just cleaning the like Tupperware and stuff that we save leftovers in and the like cooking
Yeah.
tools, like the pots and pans and stuff. And that makes it a much more accessible amount of dishes to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, the other piece too, if there are resources for certain chores to get done by other people, if you're able to support swap or barter something or pay for someone to come in and do a certain amount of cleaning or this type of chore, or take the laundry out to do it if there's no like way for you to do laundry where you're at, and like going to the laundromat is way too much right now in addition to everything
Oh,
else.
so
See if
overstimulated.
yeah, or there's some things you could do to get that covered so it's not on you or the roommate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the way to avoid it is to just have some really difficult conversations, which sucks because you probably don't have a lot of capacity for that. Um, but it's not going to be able to be avoided just by like you individually feeling better. It's going to be a communal effort of the way that the environment works changes.
Yeah. And then, final thought here, this doesn't prevent or avoid meltdowns, but it can be helpful in navigating and like taking a moment beforehand. Is if your basic needs are met already, if you're not hangry, if you're not super tired, like if trying to get your sleep, trying to get some food, snacks here and there, staying on top of hydration, making sure you're not too hot or too cold, those really basic things can just make it
Mhm.
easier to navigate, and sometimes gives us a slight moment to go, hold on, I'm ramping up or I'm shutting down and I got to get out of here. I got to change something.
Yep,
Is that a
exactly.
DBT? Is that the halt or something? Is there like a DBT thing for that?
It probably is. It sounds a
Okay.
little like cold. Please is also like what about like treating physical illness. The P and the L are both in physical
Oh.
and not the P in physical and the L in illness, and I hate it. It drives me up a wall. Um, and then E is balanced eating. A is avoid mood altering substances. The S is balanced sleep, and the second E is exercise. But I usually go with movement.
Oh,
So it's like taking care of your physical body.
yeah. Yeah, it just makes it a little easier for us to navigate the hard moments.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, you can expect new episodes weekly from us on Tuesdays. You can find me over at Cryptid Learns and Sabrina at Radical Insights Consulting on Facebook or Instagram, or you can add a .com at the end for our websites. You can follow the podcast on Facebook or Instagram at Aces Up Your Sleeve Pod, so you can interact with us and you can see when new episodes release. If you have any questions for us, visit neurokink.org/AUYS and you can send them our way. We're going to jump over to Patreon to record Upping the Ante, which is our free exclusive bonus content. And we're going to discuss internalized meltdowns over there and how to navigate those. If you want to join us now, it's patreon.com/Aces Up Your Sleeve podcast. Thanks for listening.